Oh no. That'd be why you always wear your safety glasses, kids. Well, good morning. This morning, first thing we're going to do is get back on the plasma table. And I got some revisions to the motor mount plates that I cut last week. And you probably saw on the plasma table where the plasma table kind of crashed and dove into the material. That's what we ended up with. These holes in the corners are a little bit too big for the mount bolts. So I'm going to change that around. I need to cut the tabs for the standard bush sleeves, and what I got to do is locate these on the side of the motor mount or on the side of the engine block, and then snake a tube in that will tie these into the frame or the chassis frame rails. So I'll get you in here and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. So we have the standard motor mount plate, which is right there, and then this bush sleeve has got to kind of sit right there on some tabs. And then I've got to get a piece of tubing that's going to come up from this bush sleeve here up to the frame rail right here on the back side of here. It's quite the packaging. I've got a lot of stuff going on right here, but that's why I waited till right now to do this, because I've got my mock-up drive shaft in here. I got my upper link and my lower link here. This is the time to do it. We need to make sure we have clearance. We have room for everything in here. And the good thing is I've got the bigger drive shaft tube here, which is, I think this is a 3-inch OD. On the mock-up third member, this is the bigger 1410 yoke for the 1410 size U-joint, which I won't be running, but that's okay, because as long as I know I've got clearance for this yoke, then I know I'll have plenty of clearance for the smaller 1350 size yoke. So that's what we're going to tackle today. First thing, I've got to get these motor mounts sort of solidified, tacked in place, and then I can pull the engine off the table, slide the chassis forward, and start working on this suspension geometry again. This upper link I think needs to be a little taller, like I said in the last video. Don't want to repeat myself too much, but anyway, here we go. So we've got new motor mount plates cut out, and I got these holes adjusted. I'm happy with the size of these holes. I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put a chamfer bit in the drill and just chamfer these holes out top and bottom a little bit. But the fit up is great. So next thing I need to do is weld these tabs in here. All right, so if you can picture these, this is your internal sleeve that goes inside these poly bushings, the insulators here on this bush sleeve. So what I need to do is, we have it set up to where, well, that didn't work out. I need to open up these holes just a little bit. on these tabs for this 9/16 bolt. Once I get that done, bolt slides through this, and what I need to do is I have some material over there under the lathe. I got some aluminum, and I'm going to go ahead and machine down some aluminum pucks that will emulate the width and the centering feature of these bushings, so that when I go to tack them in place, everything's centered up. The aluminum's obviously not going to melt, and I won't have to worry about having these bushings in there that's going to, you know, distort and melt when I'm tacking stuff in place and doing final welding. You can buy these bushings. I think you can buy them. They're readily available, but I've got the material. I'm trying to save money, so I'm going to make my own. All right, here we go. Alright folks, well, I've got this inside of the bushing turned down to size. I've got my center hole drilled to 9/16 size, and now it's time to use the cutoff tool to cut this off at this shoulder here. I measured this shoulder right at 1/4 inch, and now it's the truth, or the fact of the matter is I get nervous with this cutoff tool. I've never had great success with the cutoff tool. I don't know if it's the rigidity of the setup. I don't know if it's my feeds and speeds. I don't know if it's the fact that I have this thing not set at the right height. But anyway, here goes nothing. I've had these things break. I've had all kinds of drama with these, so hopefully this goes well. And hopefully I have enough depth with this cutoff tool to get into the center here. If not, I can finish it off just with a hacksaw, just barely. But anyway, here goes. Well, case in point, I'm getting into it. It's chattering pretty good. Maybe I need to put some cutting fluid in there. And then I stalled the machine because the carbide cutting blade came out of the holder and jammed everything up. So luckily I have some more of these carbide little bit blades. I installed a new one, and hopefully I can salvage this part. So here we go. Well, there we go. A little bit of drama, but got her done. It seems like slowing down the machine, the turning speed, helps a little bit in cutting. This cut isn't great, but I'll chuck that back up in the lathe and clean that up just a little bit. Yeah, I just need this bushing to represent the poly bushing. and it will go in here like so. Give me the width I need, and I can fine tune this width here after I get the next one turned. But yeah, that'll work. So I just need to do this same thing again on this one. Hopefully that works out. Ideally, I'd like to have 4 of these, but we'll see how this next one goes. I might move on to something else and come back to this. Well, 2 down. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 more. That one didn't have, the cutoff on that one didn't have quite as much drama. This in here is not the best, but it'll work. I think I got this cutoff tool figured out. It needs a certain feed, and you need to check this set screw, because this thing, if there's any chatter, this thing just loosens up in here, and you need some cutting fluid. But I'm here, I might as well cut the other 2 I need. Okay, well, that took some time, but I think it's time well spent. So we've got bushings here now. And so they're basically, we've got our 9/16 bolts. Got our bushings. Oh, did that wrong already. There we go. I can go ahead and weld that in. And that's going to represent our bush sleeve. I got 2 of them to do for the motor mounts. We should be good to go. Just want to make sure I don't have too much space in here. Good. So I got 2 sets of those. Get these plates and these tabs prepped to weld. I like to take the any plasma cut part I found, you've got to clean up all the plasma cut edges, otherwise it'll introduce porosity in your into your weld. I've had trouble with porosity in the past. What I've found is just small parts like this, the easiest thing to do. You can clean and clean and clean, and you'll sometimes still get porosity. What I found is the easiest thing to do with these little parts, like these tabs and these plates, is put them in muriatic acid for a minute. It'll take all the oxidation off these cut edges, and you won't have porosity problems. So that's what we'll do now. We'll get these prepped to weld, and we'll go to welding. All right, here we go. The old muriatic bath. If you leave it in here long enough, it'll eat up all the mill scale too, which I don't think we're quite there yet. So I'll let these sit a little while longer. All right, let's take these out of the shmoo. Oh no, that'll be why you always wear your safety glasses, kids. All right, so as you probably saw there, I got the engine centered up between the frame rails. I'm happy with my position front to back. I took the mock-up transfer case off so that I can measure off the tail shaft of the transmission. We're centered up here. I'm happy with where my output on the transfer case is. And now I've got to bolt up these motor mounts that I just made and are welded up. They're cooling right now. I'll bolt them up to the engine block, and then we'll get some tubing and we'll suspend those bush sleeves and get those mocked up. All right, here we go. As expected, I needed to do a little massaging on these mount holes on this one, and I didn't want to do that until after I welded it, so I did have to massage them a little bit. And I went ahead, I've got a stamp, I went ahead and stamped this with an R so I know this is for the right side, so that way there's no confusion when we go to put it back together after we paint it. All right, so we got these motor mounts in there. You can see that little guy in there. Now we're gonna come up and run tube from up there to inside of the frame rail here. I need to be mindful that that tubing is gonna need bracing, going up the tube, down the tube, or up the frame rail and down the frame rail. And also mindful that, you know, that's why I've got everything bolted up. I've got the header on here, I've got a mock-up drive shaft in here, I got the links. It's getting pretty crowded right in here, but on the passenger side, there's quite a bit more room. So we'll have another tube. Might put, let's see if I can get a straight shot straight up here. That'll be the strongest. There's your motor mount bushing, or your bush sleeve. Let's see if I can get a straight shot up here. That's going to be the strongest. Over there I might have to put a little bend in the tube, but it's going to be gusseted front and back along the frame rail. So this primary on this header could be in a better spot. You know, if I were to do it, well, maybe. There's always something you're going to have to work around regardless. It's never going to be perfect, but I can make this work. It's just going to take a little extra gusseting and bracing up in here, and we'll make sure the packaging and everything is fit up. We'll probably start on this side because it's a little bit simpler. Get my feet wet there, get my notching legs back under me. It's been a while since I notched some tube. We're going to use 1.5 inch DOM and come off this bush sleeve up to the frame rail. Here we go. All right, well, if you can see around all these tubes, that gives me a baseline. I cut this notch at a 90 to the tube, and because of the fact that this is on this S-bend in the frame rail and it's sort of rotating downward at this point, that 90 turned to a 10, and then that 10 turned to a 20, and I've got the tube in there on the motor mount bush sleeve, but I've got quite a gap in here. So at this point, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and massage this notch with the flapper disc because that's the baseline. That's what I needed. And I want to try to get this tube to come off of here, off the frame rail, perpendicular. So I know it's all tubes right here and it's hard to understand, but you'll get it in a minute. All right, I'm happy with that. That's gonna work. So just keep in mind we'll have gussets coming from here down this way, from here up on the underside of the tube, and somewhere in here as well. We'll have to work around the header here, but I think that's gonna work just fine. Well, that's gonna do it for this episode. Got a lot of footage from over the weekend. Stay tuned. We're gonna be pulling the front axle out, pulling the engine out, and then reattaching the front axle and checking for clearances and steering angle. You also might check out Kevin Jones' channel, Chasing 518. He's building Stryker 3, which was the last chassis I made, and he's going to be putting out weekly videos too. We'll put up a link right here. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next time.